Now, across Australia, this is Wide World of Sports with James Willis.
How good is this? One sleep away from a sports lover's delight. The NRL prelim starting tomorrow night. AFL Grand Final this weekend as well. The Wallabies continue their run. Group 1 racing at Rose Hill. Sport everywhere from start to finish. And it's our job to bring it all to you over the next hour on the Wide World of Sports. I'm James Willis. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. On the program, Gus Gould from Channel 9 will run his eye over the two games across the weekend, Souths and Manly tomorrow night, and then Melbourne and Penrith on Saturday. The AFL legend Shane Crawford will join us to preview the grand final on Saturday in Perth between Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs. Wallabies great Tim Horan is here, and also Ken Sutcliffe, Mr. Wide World of Sports himself, will give us his thoughts on the big sporting stories of the week. Plus your calls anytime, 131873. And look, let me say off the top, give me a little bit of a hand here, because I've had a good chat to a few people at the NRL today, and the game is about to begin one of the most extensive reviews they've done in recent times into the rules, into the bunker, into the match review committee. Now, we know often in rugby league and, well, I guess in life, a lot of these reviews can be smoke and mirrors and don't really get anywhere, and you often never even hear what they actually said. But based on what I'm told today, nothing is off the table at the end of this season. The match review committee is going under the microscope. The role of the bunker will be heavily scrutinised, and so it should. The rule changes that we've seen over the last couple of years and, you know, the results that have happened, some of the big blowouts. So, look, the NRL is saying it's all systems go, but they still want to make sure that everything they've done so far is working to its best potential. Now, Brad Fittler made the point last night that we often have become whingers in the game and referees aren't always going to be perfect, and I do agree with that. However, I think most of us would accept that there are certain areas of the game in rugby league that could be run much better. So I thought tonight, let's start by helping the NRL out in this review straight off the top. Now, you tell me, top of the list, if you're a rugby league fan, what is the one thing that the game could be doing better and should be doing from next season and beyond? And I don't care how ridiculous or impossible it may seem. Is it a rule? Do you like the 6-to-go rule? Does that have to stay, or should we be getting rid of that altogether? I actually don't like it. I prefer them to go back to the old penalty system. I miss that anticipation. And if you're a local fan on the hill, you'd be booing until you get a crowd penalty. How good was that? Is it the bunker and the role of the bunker throughout play? I think it's ridiculous that the bunker can over-police some areas, like high tackles, but then it couldn't rule on the illegal field goal from the Roosters the other week, or the penalty that should have been awarded for Jerome Luai holding back Mitch Moses. $2 million this bunker cost to run, and it heavily polices some areas, but other areas it has no jurisdiction over. To me, that seems madness. So you tell me, 131873, match review committee, what do you want to change there? What could really be better in terms of the way the game is run and the policing as a result? You tell me, 131873. Lifelong fans that love the game, obviously you're going to be hurt by what's going on at the moment. You don't understand the rules, the suspensions. So help me out. Get on the line, 131873, and we'll pass all of this on, I can assure you, to the NRL by the end of this show. What must they fix? Top of the list. Just give me one for next year and beyond. I'd love to hear from you. We'll go to a break and we'll take your calls after this with our best caller tonight to win an NRL hoodie in the team of your choice. So get on the line. What is it? 131873. Big show. Gus Gould, Tim Horan, all on the way tonight. I'm James Willis. This is the Wide World of Sports. Yeah, callers online, stay there. Plenty of people have got ideas about what we should be doing to fix the NRL for next year. So stay there and I'll come to you straight after this. But I want to get a preview of the preliminary finals this weekend. So Souths and Manly tomorrow night, Melbourne and Penrith on Saturday. There's so many incredible and fascinating storylines here. Can the Storm go back-to-back? Will Penrith miss out for the second year in a row, despite largely being the best side for those years? Can Manly achieve a fairy tale run, or will Souths give Wayne Bennett and Adam Reynolds a fitting farewell? Phil Gould is leading up Channel 9's commentary team. His podcast, which I love and listen to every week, is called Six Tackles with Gus, and he's on the line. Good evening to you, Phil.
Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Good. It was interesting to read Andrew Johns' piece today in the Herald. He said he was more nervous before a preliminary final than a grand final because he thought if he could get through this weekend, then he'd be confident of winning the big dance. I found that fascinating.
I was talking to James Bracey on the podcast this week. The preliminary final was always the nerve-wracking game of the year because when you lose this, you feel like you've lost everything. You know, you bow out and you become persona non grata because the only ones I'm going to talk about is the grand final, and you can't even watch the grand final. You're so disappointed at bowing out at this stage. So we all feel very nervous going into preliminary finals. That week before the grand final, you've got to win this one to play in the big show. When you go to the grand final, you don't want to lose, but if you lose, there's still a fair bit of prestige and glory in the fact that you've made the big one. There's nothing for you if you miss out at the preliminary final stage. South Sydney have been through it a few times now, and they're desperate to win this one. And the Eagles, of course, can come from a long way back. Des Hasler, the perfect record in preliminary finals, 5 appearances, 5 wins. So maybe he's timed his run to perfection.
I know, I read that today. A very young Manly side, and I know the big knock on them, Gus, is the fact that they don't have a flash record against the other top teams this season.
No, they haven't. They haven't beaten a top 4 or even a top 5 side this year. The team they beat last week, the Roosters, were running on empty and, it was probably half a reserve grade team too, to be honest, a lot of young fellas in their side. And they beat up on those. But South Sydney's form is far superior. I mean, they've only one win in the season proper. They're only one win behind Melbourne and Panthers, who have dominated this competition. We're everyone's choice for a grand final rematch. South Sydney threw the spanner in the works a fortnight ago. Their in-season form is much better. I think their finals form is much better. When Manly came up against Melbourne, they were just weren't in the race. They were flogged. They beat a sort of half a first-grade side last week to get to this point. I'm not saying Manly can't win it, and I really respect their coach and a number of their key players, particularly their playmakers, Foran and Cherry Evans and, of course, Tom Trbojevic. But in the overall scheme of things, I think Wayne Bennett, with the perfect preparation, a fortnight off, a tough win over the Panthers, he's also, he's been down this road many, many times. Just on sheer form, if forced to make a selection, I'm kind of with South. I think their form's better, despite the fact no Latrell Mitchell.
I was amazed having a look at the 1991 season today, Gus, and the coaches and the players that were involved. Wayne Bennett with Brisbane 30 years ago was the coach there. He's still going. How has he been able to remain not just in first grade, but at the top in the best sides every year for so long with the changes to technology and personnel and players and generations? It is incredible.
Yeah, well, it's a dedication. It's a dedication to each craft. He doesn't really have that many interests outside of football. To be honest, it's consumed his life, and he's been able to adapt with the times. And when you're thinking a man that's nearly in his 7th decade, I mean, he's to be still relevant with the young players that we have today and everything that goes on in the new world. Wayne Bennett hasn't changed a lot, but he's adapted his coaching style, his relationships, his communication skills, and he's kept adapting to new rules, and and he's been able to do it. It's a real credit. I mean, what's he 888 games or something he's coached? So
amazing.
He's got the hang of it now.
The 7th preliminary final in a row for the Melbourne Storm, but given the retirement of Cameron Smith, Gus, are you surprised by their dominance again this year? Well,
no. Cameron Smith obviously was he was a big loss and one of the greatest players, if not the greatest player of all time. But they always have a succession plan. They've always, they've used 2 players to replace him now. So they have the guile and the cunning of this Harry Grant, and they've got the brute force and will of this Brandon Smith, and they kind of share the role. So 2 players meld into one, and the Melbourne Storm keep on marching on. Plus the fact it's been a very weak competition too, let's be honest. The top teams have hopped on one leg to get to this level. Melbourne, so many teams have set point-scoring records this year, and there have been a lot of blowout scores. The top teams have been clearly superior to the rest of them, and then Panthers and Melbourne have sort of been clearly superior to them. Panthers spilled their lollies a fortnight ago. They got it wrong against South Sydney and they had to come through the halfway and had to survive another heart scare last week against Parramatta. This Melbourne side, great coach, great succession planning. Their football is brilliant in its simplicity. It's just all effort, and there's a fair bit of cunning with it as well. So they're the side to beat. They've got the fortnight off. They've got the perfect preparation. They've had one semi-final. The only thing I go back to is that the only team that really tested them over the last 6 weeks was Parramatta, and they beat them pretty comfortably. And, Panthers have had 2 knockdown, drag-them-out games. So they had the hard game against South Sydney, that heart-stopper last week against Parramatta. I think that's perfect preparation coming into the Melbourne Storm. If Panthers are going to win, they're going to win by a couple of points. They're not going to blow Melbourne away. So they've actually had 2 warm-up games to play like that in close, tight football. Melbourne Storm, the last time they were asked to play like that, they were beaten, and beaten comprehensively. They then get into the semi-finals and they run away and win their next game. But they've had a fortnight off and they've got the advantage. But this Panthers team, I can imagine from grand final day last year, this is the one game they've been living for. Every night they go to bed thinking about that lost grand final and getting redemption on the Melbourne Storm. And here they have them, not in grand final day, preliminary final day. Loser leaves the state. But I can't imagine they won't give her their best on Saturday night or Saturday afternoon.
Yesterday was 30 years since you guys won the premiership in 1991. You'd lost to the Raiders the year before. Are you a big believer still today that you've got to lose one to win one based on what you just said?
Well, I don't believe in it, but history shows it's pretty right, doesn't it? There are plenty of teams that have been down that way. And if we go back in 91, it's a long time ago, 30 years ago. I mean, Canberra were renowned as one of the greatest club teams in history. Yeah. They went to 3 grand finals during that period, and we were unlucky to lose to them in 1990, and we came back and beat them in 1991. And I always say the thing that makes that win by that team so great is the greatness of the team they beat. The Canberra Raiders team were rated one of the greatest teams of all time, and had many representative stars and international stars in their side. And the Panthers matched it with them in 90 and then came back 12 months later and won the minor premiership by 8 points or 7 or 8 points and, won their semi-final, went straight through to the grand final. They had 2 fortnight breaks in a row and still outlasted Canberra Raiders at the back end of the game to win. It was a monumental win, I think a very underrated grand final. And the Panthers 91 team is a very underrated team because they beat a champion team to win it. They beat a team that had won 2 premierships in a row, and that's no easy feat. And a lot of those players, Canberra come back and won again in 94. A lot of those players are some of the greats of the game. So it's a badge of honour for that Panthers side in 1991. 30 years ago. Crikey, my life. I'm getting old, aren't I?
It's a shame you can't meet up for a lunch with all the boys. I'm sure you would have.
Well, I actually got a text message this week that there's a harbour cruise on in December if the Premier lets us out. So if the Premier lets us out, you'll see the 91 Panthers side making a mess of themselves on Sydney Harbour at some stage in December. I don't know if they know the behaviour rules have changed. I'm going to have to confiscate mobile phones. But although we're all getting a bit old now, hopefully they've slowed down.
I'm sure, Freddie, MG, I'm sure you'll be right. Hey, Gus, we appreciate your time. We'll be watching on 9 over the weekend and loving the podcast with James Bracey.
Good on you, mate. Best of luck to you.
Gus Gould from Channel 9, an amazing career, as we know, as a coach. Won a premiership with the Bulldogs in 1988, Penrith 1991, the most successful New South Wales coach in history across 2 stints. And yesterday, 30 years ago, the Panthers won their first ever grand final.
Penrith claim their first ever title, the Winfield Cup of 1991. Let's go back now with David and Phil Gould.
Well, Phil, explain the feeling right now. You've done it with Canterbury Bankstown. What about this Penrith side?
Mate, it's very exciting. You can tell just the excitement here, but there's a lot of feeling amongst these blokes and, a very special win, the first ever for the club. And, I'm just so proud of them the way they played in that second half. We got away from it a bit in the first half, and Canberra, a great side. And, second half just didn't look like we were going to get across the line, but, they kept coming and nothing set them back. And, tremendous performance. There's some real good players in this side. In fact, there's a few champions.
Yeah, Gus Gould in his early 30s. What an amazing story that was yesterday, 30 years ago. 131873 is our open line number. Scott's online from Penrith. G'day, Scott.
Yeah, how you going?
Good, mate. Thanks for waiting on.
No, that's okay. Yeah, mate, I'm a fan of the 6 to go, but on tackle 1, it's got to be a penalty. There's no advantage to the attacking side, especially when they kick to the corner.
Absolutely, and all it does, if you're committed on the first tackle, teams just have to make 7 tackles instead of 6. There's really no punishment there. It only hurts when it's late in the tackle count, 3, 4 or 5, that you start to struggle, but they clearly do it deliberately on tackle 1.
That's right, 100%. So there's no advantage to the attacking side. They've got to change that.
Good on you. Thank you, Scott. 131873. We'll take more calls after this, and you're all in the running to win the hoodie, an NRL hoodie in the team of your choice tonight. We'll go to a break. Coming up, Wallabies legend Tim Horan. Yeah, plenty of people want to comment on this review by the NRL, which is going to look at all issues across the game and what they can change for next year. People have got plenty of good ideas, and we'd love to hear from you. Give us a call, 131873. Zach's online from Castle Hill. G'day, Zach.
Hey, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah, not bad.
Go ahead, mate.
My rule that I change is I'd take away 2 weeks of suspension when it comes to finals. So say you get a 2-week suspension or a 3-week suspension. You only have to serve 1 week of it during finals, and you serve the next 2 weeks during the next season.
Okay, thanks. Not a bad idea, Zach. I really like what Brad Fittler said, which is going hard on the blatant, obvious, harsh tackles, which are the ones that are send-offs or 3-4 weeks. Go as hard as you like on those. But it does seem cruel to rob someone like Sam Verrill's 2 matches in a final series for the Sydney Roosters, so not a bad point. Thank you. More calls after this.
A news update. Experience the convenience of buying your new Hyundai online with Hyundai's Click to Buy. Visit the Hyundai website to find your local dealer today.
And we say good evening to you, Meg Venlohausen.
Thanks, James. A protester who was at Melbourne's Shrine of Remembrance yesterday is now in hospital with COVID. The Victorian Health Department is urging the hundreds of other people who were there to get tested if they have symptoms. There are concerns for Sydney's hospital system amid 2 new COVID outbreaks at Liverpool and the Mater. Workers at a major parcel delivery company, Star Trek, are striking across the country, and a woman has been winched to safety after being swept into the ocean south of Sydney. Her husband and 2 grandchildren made it back to shore before the man jumped back in to be with his injured wife until rescue crews arrived. In sport, Sydney apprentice jockey Tom Sherry has been banned from riding for 4 months after failing to follow state health orders and then testing positive to COVID. James, there'll be more news in about 29 minutes.
Thanks, Meg. Great job. 131873 is our open line number. Mark's online from Kellyville. G'day, Mark.
Hey, mate. How you going?
Good. Go ahead.
Mate, I would. The one thing I would change. Rugby league lost me in the 80s when they changed the scrum rules. Mate, please take it back to a real scrum. Well, you have an even strike at the ball. I don't see the point of a scrum. They've actually chased me over to rugby.
Well, there's even fewer scrums this year than before because unless the ball goes out, it's just a handover. So you sometimes only see 1 or 2 scrums a game, but yeah, they've been useless for years, Mark. Absolutely.
You're beating the ball in the second row. What's the point of having a scrum?
And you got the fullback backing down in the front row sometimes as well. Good on you. Thank you. 131873 is our number. This man knows a lot about scrummaging. Not that he did any himself, but he played plenty of test matches for the Wallabies, and that is Tim Horan, multiple World Cup winner. And the Wallabies have hit some form. 2 big wins over the Springboks. They now turn their attention to Argentina on Saturday in Townsville. Argentina yet to win a game as part of the Rugby Championships. And you can see all this across the Nine Network and also on Stan Sport. Tim Horan's on the line. G'day, Tim.
Hi, James. Yeah, it's going to be exciting, isn't it, on Saturday night? Of course, in Townsville, the 3rd match, double header again, and the curtain raiser for the Wallabies against Argentina. Of course, be an exciting match. The All Blacks up against South Africa in their 100th Test match. So looking forward to it.
I think the most entertaining player in our side is his front rower, Taniela Tupou. What about his ball skills?
He's been incredible. The last couple of years, a couple of years ago he came over as a youngster, sort of 18-year-old from Auckland to Brisbane to obviously sign with the Queensland Reds, and it took him a little bit of time. He was, his set piece wasn't as good as what it should be, and Brad Thorne said, listen, fix up your scrummaging work and your line-out work first, and then you can play a little bit wider. And I'll tell you what, the last couple of years he's been sensational. I think he played 76 minutes last week against the Springboks and was superb.
Fullback Tom Banks out this week, so Reece Hodge into the starting side, and that sees, Tim, the return of James O'Connor on the bench.
Yeah, he's come out. He's had a groin injury the last 3 or 4 months. He hasn't played for a little while. Hurt his groin a little while back, and then re-injured it at training about 9 or 10 weeks ago now. So he's just coming back to, obviously coming off the bench. I think that's a good opportunity for him coming off the bench rather than starting at fullback. And Reece Hodge, I think he's performed really well for Australia. In 50-odd Test matches that he's played, and a lot of those has been off the bench. But I think outstanding for him. He had a little bit of trouble with a high ball last week, but against Argentina, I think I'm looking forward to him playing at fullback and then chiming into that back line.
Hey, Tim, let me ask you this. We've got a selection policy in place for the Wallabies team, which is called Giddo's Law, which has been in place since 2015. So for those that don't know, if you've played more than 60 tests, you can be based overseas and still play for the Wallabies. Should that be scrapped? Have we moved past that? And if so, what should the new rule be from now on?
Yeah, it's looking like it has been scrapped. Obviously, Samu Kerevi has been with the Wallabies the last couple of Test matches. Sean McMahon will probably get a chance in the last Test match on the Gold Coast next weekend for the Wallabies, maybe off the bench, or he might start. But I think it's what they're looking at now is, okay, do you just scrap that altogether? If anyone wants to go overseas, that's okay. You're not going to be guaranteed an opportunity to play for the Wallabies unless there's some injuries or we really need someone in that position. So I think they've just got to stay flexible with it, and they've really got to make sure they encourage players to stay in Australia and play for Super Rugby teams. And if players opt to go overseas, that's okay, but you're not guaranteed to wear a gold jersey. I
mean, that's the big point, isn't it? We can't have poor Super Rugby sides here, New South Wales, Queensland, the Brumbies, and allow all these players to go overseas, and then when the Test season comes round, they all come back and take up the spots of those that have been loyal to the home teams here.
Yeah, I think it's a real balance, James, because when you look at the fans, and the fans are the most important part of the game, is the fans want to know that every time the Wallabies run out, that they have the ability to select every player available to have the best team to beat the All Blacks or beat the Springboks or beat whoever they play against. So if that means selecting one player from overseas who's currently playing, or 4 or 5, that's what I'll be looking at. And Dave Rennie, the coach, looks at that and goes, okay, well, let's just select the best team available, whether it's players from overseas or whether it's players in Super Rugby, so the fans know that when the Wallabies run out, that's the best team available to be selected.
Appreciate your time. We'll be watching on Stan this weekend.
Good on, James. Look forward to it, mate, from Townsville.
Go the Wallabies. Tim Horan and the Wallabies take on Argentina on Saturday in Townsville. And as he said, the All Blacks also playing the Springboks, and the All Blacks once again appearing unbeatable.
You're listening to Wide World of Sports.
Yes, you are. Mark Levy back next week. James Willis in the chair tonight. Thanks for joining us. 131873 is our open line number. Callers online. Michael's there. G'day, Michael.
Yes, g'day, mate. I have 2 rules I'd like to see change.
Sure.
One is if the 6 again rule, I think should only apply if you don't get 6 again if you're in your own half. You get the penalty instead. So that way, it's all about territory, and if you're in your own half, you don't really get much of an advantage from 6 again, no matter where you are. So I'd like to see that changed. And the second change I'd like to see is if a footballer catches the ball on the full from an opponent's kick, doesn't matter where he is, that's a 0 tackle, because not enough credit is given to players who actually catch the ball on the full.
All right, it's very handy. Thank you, Michael. 131873 is our number. I think, I've got to say, and I could be in the minority here, I miss the old penalties. And I know that we've seen a lot more tries, but I think this year we've seen on too many occasions the momentum, once it goes with a good side, is too hard to wrestle back. And I miss the old penalty. Find the line, build the anticipation, work out your next set. But a lot of people like it, and I know the broadcasters do as well. Gary says, "G'day, James. My change is only allowing the bunker to get involved for tries in goal. I love that." And James, the ARL needs to cut back to 12 very well-resourced teams playing each other twice in a 22-round home and away season. Great football and a fair and predictable competition. Thanks for that. By the way, the mail out of the NRL headquarters today is that in a couple of weeks from now, they will announce that we are going to 17 teams. So the 17th side will be announced in the southeast Queensland area. Now, there'll be a big debate about whether we have the talent, given how poor some of the teams were this year. I've never been a fan, but the NRL says that is the way forward for the game.
Now on Wide World of Sports, back a winner. Ladbrokes Bet Ticker gives you a live feed of incoming bets across all your favourite races and sports. See where the big bets land today. Gamble responsibly.
Yeah, courtesy of ladbrokes.com.au. Tom Hackett's on the line. G'day, Tom.
Hello, James.
So we ran through the NRL preliminary finals yesterday. So South's favourites against Manly and the Melbourne Storm short price favourites against the Penrith Panthers on Saturday. Let's have a look at the AFL Grand Final in Perth on Saturday. The Melbourne Demons up against the Western Bulldogs. What are the punters saying here thanks to Ladbrokes?
Market hasn't moved at all week. Melbourne, they've been $1.73 favourites throughout the week. Western Bulldogs are $2.35. But the big money with Ladbrokes is coming for the Melbourne Demons. It's taken a couple of bets around the $35,000 mark on the Demons to get the job done, win that drought-breaking premiership. So I wouldn't be surprised if we see in the next few days, ahead of the game on Saturday, the Melbourne Demons do start a little bit shorter, and maybe the Bulldogs get out to around the $2.50 mark.
Okay, ladbrokes.com.au. Now, the racing only gets bigger as the weeks go on from here. What's happening at Moonee Valley? I love the night racing there.
Night racing at the Valley, there's nothing better. The night racing season kicks off tomorrow night with the Moya Stakes, the Group 1 Sprint, and it's a fascinating edition of the Moya this year. Profiteer to 3-year-old, he's the favourite. He's $4. First time he's taken on the older horses, but he's got speed to burn, and the Valley should really suit him. The Inferno won the McEwen Stakes last start at the Valley over this trip. He's right in the mix there at $5. But I think there's some value to be found here, James. What's that? Currently $18 with Ladbrokes. On her day, she's a very, very classy mare. First up preparation, she was third behind Nature Strip in the Black Caviar Lightning Stakes, and she is capable of winning this race at a nice price. So if you're looking for a bit of value in the Moya Stakes, what's that? $18 to win, $4.60 to play. She's a great each-way bet.
Good stuff. Thank you, mate. We'll chat soon. We appreciate your time.
Thanks, James.
Tom Hackett from ladbrokes.com.au. Remember to gamble responsibly on all the sport over the weekend.
That's what I'm talking about!
A huge weekend of sport, and I think head of the list, one of the big things we're looking forward to is the AFL Grand Final. Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs at Optus Stadium in Perth from 7:25 Saturday night. Melbourne chasing their first premiership since 1964. The Western Bulldogs won in 2016. Before that, way back in 1954. Shane Crawford is an AFL legend. He's a big part of the Channel 9 commentary team. Won a famous grand final you just heard the audio from with Hawthorn in 2008, and he's on the line. G'day, Crawf.
James, how are you?
I'm good. Did you trademark that phrase? Did you make any money off that?
No, it just came out. I had no idea what was going on. We were the underdogs going into the grand final, so you don't plan any of that. You just act crazy when you lose the plot.
Did we get the best grand final in your mind, Melbourne and the Western Bulldogs? Is that the best possible game?
Yeah, it's very hard to split them. I know the odds are a little bit different, but the Bulldogs love being the underdogs, and Melbourne have been awesome. They've got a great defence, good through the midfield, got the best ruckman in the league in Max Gawn, who's the captain, and it's there for them. Melbourne, they haven't had premiership glory in 57 years, but it's all set up for them to break the drought. But one thing about these two clubs, they don't like each other much. There's great rivalry, and I have no doubt it's going to be close. I really, really believe that, and I think we're in for a beauty.
It's incredible when you say that, Crawford, and we talk about Parramatta Eels fans in the NRL, their last premiership, 1986. So we've got a 57-year drought for the Melbourne Demons. That's generations of fans that have never seen their side win a flag, and that could all come to an end on Saturday.
Yeah, and I do feel very proud for their supporters because they're finally getting a chance at premiership glory. But in another way, I feel a bit disappointed for them as well because the majority of their supporters are in Melbourne.
Yeah.
They've finally made a grand final. They've every chance of winning, and yet they unfortunately can't go along and see history being made. But in saying that, they've kept them entertained during a pretty tough year on the TV, and it would have given them a lot to smile about and a lot of hope. So
yeah, it's going to be a pretty special weekend of footy.
What about one of their ex-coaches who's one of the all-time greats, Neil Danaher? He's battling motor neurone disease. He's raised about $50 million through this event that I know you've taken part in, which is the Big Freeze, where the celebrities fly down the ice slide at the MCG. That would just be so special for a man that's done so much for the game after overcoming and battling a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. Like Neil Danaher, I was lucky enough to go to the same school, and I had a little bit to do with him when I was at school. He'd come down to the school and try and help out the footy team, and he's just a wonderful human being, you know, and obviously battling his illness that he is, but still being that face and being out in front and trying to drive people to support and help raise money and into research. It's just quite incredible and quite inspirational. So I have no doubt they'll draw on a lot of that on the weekend, the Ds. You know, they've been starved of success for such a long time. So the players are highly motivated. They're playing as a team. They've really got great connection right across the ground. And that's what you need. That's what you need for Premiership glory. And, fingers crossed for the Ds and all their supporters.
We're speaking to Shane Crawford, AFL legend. Crawford, I heard one of the Bulldog stars, Adam Treloar, speak during the week, who lost a grand final a few years ago with Collingwood. This is what he said about that.
Playing in a grand final is something that you dream of being able to do, and coming so close but feeling yet so far, it will always hurt me. It'll hurt me to the day that I die because, in the manner and the way that we lost, we were up for pretty much the whole game and losing within 2 minutes of the game finishing. Yeah, it still hurts me to this day.
And Crawford, you often hear that in big games where players get out there, the game starts, and then suddenly you look up at the scoreboard and it's almost over. These big games go so quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And that was hard for Collingwood supporters, obviously dominating the game, and then West Coast coming like a steam train and just chipped away as the game went on. But the last couple of minutes, it was just the most perfect play, which never really happens in AFL footy because the defence is so good and it's so hard to take the ball from one end of the ground all the way perfectly to the other and through the goals. But it happened within the last minute of the game. Look, both sides. The thing is, you don't want to think about winning. You do sort of, have fleeting moments where you dream about what could be. But the most important thing is you got to go, okay, what's our process? What's my role for the team? You know you're not going to go anywhere or win any games throughout the year without hard work and teaming together. And they've both been great teams for the majority of the year. They've had little patches where they've dropped away, but that could be from, just mentally having a couple of weeks off or it can be physically, just sort of coming to that stage, or they might be in a hard training phase. But I think we've got the two best sides going at it, and that's why it's going to be an absolute beauty.
Come on, who are you tipping?
Well, I'm tipping the Dogs. I'm tipping the Dogs because I don't know why, because I keep telling myself, hang on, Melbourne have been the best team and they've got the good defence. But Luke Beveridge, his coaching helped the Bulldogs obviously win against the Swans in 2016. He coached Buddy Franklin at Hawthorn for a few years, and he just shut all the space in and around him and just didn't allow him to dominate the game like we know he can. And I've just got a feeling he's going to do another job on just blocking space and not allowing Petrarca and Max Gawn and Clayton Oliver, these star midfielders for Melbourne, to run directly towards goals. So that means you might overuse it a bit. Might mean you kick it in spots you don't really want to. And I've just got a feeling that the Dogs have been playing this underdog sort of backs against the wall. And, I just think they're going to have a bit of bite and get up in a real close one.
Crawf, enjoy it, mate. We'll chat soon.
No worries. Thanks. Bye.
Shane Crawford from Channel 9, and he'll wrap up all the action on Nine's Sports Sunday, which is fantastic.
That's what I'm talking about!
131873 is our open line number. By the way, it starts 7:15 on Saturday at Optus Stadium. The Melbourne Demons take on the Western Bulldogs. Looking for a ute or a large luxury SUV? Well, you can check out Australia's most luxurious full-size pickup truck with the all-new Ram 1500 Limited. That's V8 Hemi power, up to 4.5 tonne max, brake, towing air suspension, and a massive 12-inch touchscreen, and a premium 900-watt Harman Kardon sound system. Fantastic. That's possibly more powerful than anything you'll find in a luxury car. The Ram 1500 Limited Pickup won 2020car.com Luxury Car of the Year. Not the pickup, not the ute, the car overall. 2020car.com's Luxury Car of the Year. When it comes to total comfort and zero compromise, the Ram 1500 Limited eats more than just utes. To learn more, visit ramtrucks.com.au today. ramtrucks.com.au. We'll go to a break. Coming up, Mr. Wide World of Sports, Ken Sutcliffe. Yeah, thanks for your nice text. I'll respond to those off air. But first, let's find a winner to our quiz. We need to know which grand final this audio is from.
Kamali puts the kick over and across. There's a try coming. Craig Smith has put it down. Has he put it down legally? Was he onside?
Well,
Did he get it down?
What about the high tackle from Ainscough?
We need the year and the two sides involved. Give us a call, 131873, to be in the draw to win a signed footy with the team here at Wide World of Sports.
And now, on Wide World of Sports,
it's Ken Sutcliffe.
Kenny's Corner.
Ken, the bloody male model from Budgie.
Ken has a tremendous spot with the female audience.
Oh, you must be joking.
Experience the convenience of buying your new Hyundai online with Hyundai's Click to Buy. Visit the Hyundai website to find your local dealer today.
I love hearing from him every Thursday. He's on the line, Ken Sutcliffe. And Kenny, how good are the finals going to be this weekend? Souths and Manly and Melbourne and Penrith.
Oh, it's going to be terrific. Good evening to you. I'm loving all the mind games this year.
Yes.
You've had Bennett having a little bit of a whinge, and then Cleary had a bit of a whinge, and then you've got linesmen coming onto the ground, and then you've got trainers coming onto the ground, and then you've got players taking dives. Do you remember the time when rugby league players used to absolutely get stuck into anybody in soccer who took a dive and would poo-poo it? Now they're all doing it. And sooner or later, somebody's going to twig to it that it's not the done thing. But it's you know what I'm waiting for? The only thing that's missing so far is Alfie Langer coming onto the ground and giving instructions, and that could be on the cards, even though he's a Broncos man. So I love all the fun and games and what's going on, but I've got to say I'm over the dive. The dive is, they've got to get rid of it.
I agree with you, Ken, and the problem is the NRL's had such a ruthless crackdown on contact with the head that anyone that gets slapped across the face, whether they're a prop or a winger, they just stay down.
Yeah, it'll be the boy cried wolf. After a while, nobody will believe him when somebody is badly injured. They'll just sort of say it's another dive. That's the issue that you're going to have with all these guys. I mean, Ferguson, it was an appalling acting debut the other day, but he jumped straight back up. He didn't even think about it. And you thought, you gave yourself away in 2 seconds flat. So It's not real smart, and I hope they get rid of it. I think it's a blight on the game to dive. It really is.
I agree. He won't be winning a Logie or an Oscar anytime soon. Kenny, I've got to go, but I appreciate your time, and we'll chat to you again next week with Mark Levy. We've got to cut you short because it's been a busy show, but we'll speak to Ken Sutcliffe next week. Well done to you, Greg from Blacktown. You're in the draw to win the signed footy from the team here at Wide World of Sports. It was the 1999 grand final where Melbourne beat St George in the controversial penalty try. That's our show tonight. Look, it's been really fun filling in this week for Mark Levy. Thank you so much for having me. Mark will be back on air from next Monday, but enjoy the rest of your Thursday night. I'm James Willis. We'll see you next time on the Wide World of Sports.